You can see that he first of all introduced personal autobiographical note in English poetry. Watt's true ability as a poet is revealed not by sonnet but by a number of lyrics and songs that he composed. Then we have that Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey. He is disciple of Watt rather than independent poetical force. His sonnets are more effective than those of Watt. You can see he is a poet, son of Thomas Howard. His work consists of sonnets and miscellaneous poems in various meters, notable for the grace and the finish. He gave up the Petrarchan model popularized by Watt and prepared the ground of Shakespearean sonnet of 3 quatrains followed by a couplet. Total's Miscellany was published in 1557, a date which marks public beginning of the modern English poetry. So you can see that Earl of Surrey, the Petrarchan form is perhaps more impressive, and he modified English form the more expressive, and Shakespeare followed the English pattern of sonnet introduced by Surrey. He was the first poet to use blank verse in his translation of Aeneid. Then you have Thomas Sackville. He was a great humanist whose only contribution to poetry is the induction. He does not amount so much, but in merit it is of much consequence. He is the author of 2 significant works, The Mirror of Magistrates and The Induction. You have to remember these works. Then both are composed in the rhyme of royal stanza and melancholy. Melancholy means sadness, and elegiac in spirit and archaic in language. He is the Mirror of Magistrate is powerful picture of the underworld where the poet describes his meeting with famous Englishman who had suffered misfortune. So we have the next writer, the next poet, Sir Philip Sidney. Sir Philip Sidney was the most celebrated literary figure before Spencer and Shakespeare. As a man of letters, he is remembered for his work Arcadia, Apology for Poetry, Astrophella and Stella, and these 108 love sonnets. They are the first direct expression of personal feelings and experience in English poetry. He was the chief of an elegant poetry and exercised an influence which was almost supreme during his short life. He was the most commanding literary figure before the time of Spencer and Shakespeare. Like the best of the Elizabethans, Sidney was successful in more than one branch of literature, but of his works was published after his death. His first finest achievement in poetry was Astrophella and Stella, a collection of 108 love sonnets. It's a great book. You have to remember his work. It is very important. It is Astrophella and Stella. It is a collection of songs and sonnets evidently addressed to one person. The sonnets of Sidney was the passion for Penelope, who was by the time the wife of Lord Rich. The publication of Astrophella and Stella at once caught the imagination of the people and gave rise to the vogue of the sonnet. Everybody tried his hand at it most of the Elizabethan sonnets. They owe much to the Petrarchan and are answered in tone and style. Place Sidney as the greatest Elizabethan sonneteer except Shakespeare. So you can see Arcadia is a pastoral romance, Then apology for poetry is generally called defense of poesy. Is appeared as an answer to pamphlet written by Stephen Gosson called The School of the Abuse. Then Astrophila and Stella is a collection of songs and the sonnets addressed to Lady Penelope. And the bound of exquisite lines and the passages containing more poetic feelings and expressions than the songs of any other minor writer of the age. Then you have the most important writer again, Edmund Spencer. It was Charles Lamb who called Spencer the poet's poet. It's a tribute given to him, and in giving him that honored title, the Prince of English essayist was not wrong. Spencer is regarded as the poet's poet and the second father of the English poetry. He is called so because of all great poets of England have been indebted to him. Spencer's finest poetry is characterized by sensuousness and picturesqueness. He is a matchless painter in words. His contribution to poetic style, diction, and versification is memorable. He evolved a true poetic style which the succeeding generation of the English poets used. The introduction of the Spencerian stanza is Spencer's most remarkable contribution to poetry. He is great because of the extraordinary smoothness and melody. His verse and the richness of his language, a golden diction, and he drew from every source new words, old words. So, Shakespeare himself might not have achieved so much if Spencer had not lived and laboured that all work. Spencer's main poetical works are Shepherd's Calendar. It's best known of Spencer's poem. It consists of 12 pastoral poems. So, his poetry, we have the best and the finest qualities that are generally associated with good and great poetry. The main poetical works of Spencer: Shepherd's Calendar, the 4 hymns, Mother's Husband's Tale, the Complaints, Amoroti, and you can see Epithalamion is a magnificent ode written on the occasion of his marriage with the Elizabethan Poetry. Then you can see the Complaints, the Fairy Queen. Fairy Queen is a great work of the Spencer. Astrophila is an elegy on the death of Sir Philip Sidney, and Protholmeia is an ode on the marriage. 4 hymns is written to glorify love and honor, and Amoroti is a collection of 88 Petrarchian sonnet. Fairy Queen is an epic poem Spencer invented a new verse from, which has been called since his day in the Spencerian stanza. Then we'll be moving to the next writer, Christopher Marlowe. Marlowe was genius, and he sang songs in the pastoral strain, "Come with me and be my love." The hero and the Leander was left incomplete due to Marlowe's untimely death. It was completed by Chapman. The poem is remarkable for felicity of diction and flexibility of versification. The poets show great skill in effectively using words and the images. So he is known for Hero and Leander. Chapman also translated Iliad and Odyssey and composed some of the sonnet. Christopher Marlowe is known as Kit Marlowe, and he baptized on 26 February 1564. He was an English playwright, poet, translator of the Elizabethan era. He was the first to achieve critical notoriety of his use of blank verse, which became the standard of the era. Hero and Leander is a poem by Christopher Marlowe. that retells Greek myth of Hero and Leander. After Marlowe's timely death, it was completed by George Chapman. The minor poet Henry Petworth published an alternative completion to the poem. So we have the greatest playwright, poet, great artist, and who is known for many of his plays, William Shakespeare. So he is also spelled in this way: Shakespeare by name, bold of Avon, of Swan of Avon, and you can see he is a poet, dramatist, and actor, and also called English national poet, and he occupies a position unique in the world literature. He is a writer of the great intellectual rapidity, perceptiveness, and poetic power. He wrote some of the interesting poems like Venus and Adonis, The Rape of Lucrece. They are the only works that Shakespeare seems to have shuffled through the printing process. Both owe a good deal of it. So you can see in both the Venus and Adonis and the Rape of Lucrece, in the former, realistic passions are exposed through equally realistic pictures and episodes. It's remarkable for astonishing linguistic beauty. The latter is a contrast to the former. Shakespeare comedies and romances are littered with songs. Even in the plays, you can see there are many songs. His songs have been originality and spontaneous, freshness, filled with freshness, music realism, and some of his songs express poignant feelings of love. His songs have magic of their own and noticeable spontaneity and sweetness. Then we have Ben Jonson. He is among the best known writers and the theorists of the English Renaissance literature. And you can see a prolific dramatist and a man of letters. Then he profoundly influenced the Augustan age through his emphasis on the percept of Horace, Aristotle, and other classical Greek and Latin thinkers. So you can see his poetic work consists of short pieces which appeared in 3 collections: Epigrams, The Forest, and The Underwood. He is the first-rate satirist in the Elizabethan poetry. The spirit of satire poems are large in these 3 collections of his poetry. He presents vivid sarcastic portraits in 10 or 20 lines. His moral satires were nobler in tone and more sincere in expression than of Hall or Martin. He was the first English poet to write Pindaric ode. His ode to himself is a fine example of his genre. His poetic style is lucid, clear, and free from extravagance. He is also the forerunner of neoclassicism, which attained perfection in the works of Dryden and Pope. To Celia, Echo's song and the songs are his memorable lyrics. So you can see the Elizabethan lyric is light, filled with light and airy. It's an expression of the holiday mood of its author. What distinguishes the lyrics of this period is their musical quality, the flight of the fancy, and the note of the gay and joyous abandonment. So you can see we have so many poets like this, like Watt, Surrey, Sackville, Sidney, and Spencer, Marlowe, Shakespeare, Ben Jonson, who contributed a lot to Elizabethan poetry. Elizabethan period is known for sonnets and also lyrics. Okay, thank you students. We'll have it in the next period, the other part.